New Zealand has a corruption problem. Big money interests pour huge amounts of wealth into political parties. Big money interests buy elections. Politics is distorted and manipulated by big money. It is time to crush corruption. We need a total ban on political donations that are above a certain size. Big money donations allow the wealthy to wield enormously disproportionate political influence. This undermines democracy. Big money donations allow the interests of the wealthy to dominate the political system. Big money donations incentivize political parties to prioritize the interests of the wealthy so that they can access their vast resources in the future. Big money donations incentivize political parties to serve the interests of the wealthy first and foremost. It is the wealthy who can make or break a campaign by giving huge amounts of money to you or your opponents. Donations fund advertising, and advertising wins votes. The rich should not be allowed to pour their wealth on the scales to dictate an election result. That is indefensible and unacceptable. Big money political donations should be banned. Corruption does not simply describe bribing and buying politicians. The most common form of corruption is using your wealth to empower politicians who already agree with you. Corruption is simply the manipulation of politics by big money interests. And this is a very serious issue, particularly when parties that shamelessly serve the wealthy receive huge political donations. ACT and National received enormous amounts in big money donations prior to the 2023 election. They received far more than Labour or the Greens did. The political left received significantly more small money donations than the political right. But in total, the political right received far more because they got massive donations from the rich and the wealthy. The combined left received 30 donations that were over $20,000. National alone received 48 donations that were over $20,000. ACT received 36 donations that were over $20,000. By this metric, ACT, a right-wing minor party, received more big money donations than the entire political left combined. New Zealand First, a tiny right-wing party, received 17 donations that were over $20,000, more than Labour, the major left-wing party. National received $500,000 in a single donation. An article featuring this information can be found in the description. This information is public knowledge released by the Electoral Commission. If this does not represent big money interests buying an election, I do not know what does. Of course, big money donations alone do not decide elections, but they fund advertising, and advertising wins votes. That is just a fact. The rich are pouring their wealth on the scales to dictate election results. This is inexcusable. You should not be able to buy an election result. You should not be able to purchase your Prime Minister of choice. This undermines democracy and makes a mockery of democracy. We need to ban big money political donations. Rich people should not be able to pour their wealth on the scales to dictate an election result. This kind of politics incentivizes politicians to prioritize the interests of the wealthy so they can access their vast resources in the future. Banning big money donations is an imperative. The Labour Party or the Green Party should embrace this policy. It is morally righteous. It is also a major electoral opportunity. In the United States, Bernie Sanders and other left-wing Democrats have refused to take big money donations and have promised to ban big money donations. They have successfully used this issue to draw a strong point of contrast between themselves and their corrupt opponents. This is such an obvious progressive policy, and it is a policy that people will support. Most people hate corruption. Most people hate the idea of big money interests buying elections. The left should be bold for once and promise to ban big money political donations. Such a policy would be extremely popular. Such a policy would create a clear contrast between the political left and this donor-serving anti-worker government. And yet the New Zealand left seems desperate to squander every opportunity they can. Some may claim that this policy would damage their funding. It probably would, but doing what is right comes at a cost. And such a policy would likely revitalise grassroots support for the left. Ordinary everyday people will be motivated to support a party that stands boldly against corruption. Many regular New Zealanders will happily support a party that is fighting to put power back in the hands of the people. The current government is laughably corrupt. They have received enormous amounts in big money political donations. They are shamelessly screwing over workers and poor people. They are shamelessly serving their rich donors. Some ministers, such as Shane Jones and Winston Peters, have received big money political donations from the industries that they are supposed to be regulating. The ACT Party receives huge donations from business interests. Brock Van Velden defended the abolition of trade union empowering legislation by claiming that it was what business interests wanted. The corruption on display is laughable. The political left should refuse to take big money political donations and should promise to ban these donations. The political left should promise to crush corruption. This is the right thing to do. This is a strong progressive message that is popular with ordinary people. This is the kind of policy that will mobilise many voters behind the left. Put National and ACT in the position of having to defend their corruption. Make corruption a central political issue. Ensure that it is a centre point of the 2026 election. Create a strong contrast between the anti-corruption left and the donor-serving right. That is what the political left should be doing. New Zealand is sometimes said to be one of the least corrupt countries in the world. Most countries are horribly corrupt, so that isn't as impressive as it sounds. And most of the statistics on such things are based on perceptions of corruption, not the actual reality. The reality is that rich people can and do donate enormous amounts of money to their preferred candidates and parties. Prior to the 2023 election, ACT and National received an outlandish amount in big money donations. It is not a coincidence that these parties shamelessly serve big money interests. They have given landlords a gigantic tax cut. They have abolished trade union empowering legislation. They have slowed increases to the minimum wage. They have allowed the unemployment rate to increase, which gives employers greater leverage. They want to reduce sick leave for many workers. They are eager to destroy regulations that protect renters, workers, and the environment, all so that their donors can make more profit with less effort. And this is just the beginning. Big money donations damage democracy. They ensure that the rich have disproportionate influence. They ensure that the wealthy dominate the political system. An election should be decided by the will of the people, not the wealth of the rich. A ban on big money political donations is a common sense progressive reform. It is time to crush corruption.